All right, everybody. Warm welcome indeed, and welcome back to all those who have also joined us since the morning right here at this fabulous summit wherein we get together our thought leaders as we come together to discuss everything around the manufacturing and supply chain. So here we are at the 10th Manufacturing Supply Chain Summit. We've also witnessed two fabulous panel discussions, and somewhere during the panel discussions, we managed to gather a lot of thoughts with regard to the demand and supply planning as well. And I think somewhere we'll take that trend forward and come to the new thinking in demand and supply planning in a connected world, the theme, of course, being on optimization and synchronization. So we've got a set of amazing panelists joining in. And before we get to hear from them, let me also inform you all that this session is being moderated by Mr. Rituraj Saha, Director Supply Chain, KNB, South Asia, Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa with Kohler Company. And joining him, we also have with us Mr. Amandeep Singh Bhan, Senior Vice President, Moglix, Mr. Sitaraman Srinivasan, Director, SCM and Customer Support, Harman International India Private Limited, Mr. Sanjay Kshirasagar, Head Manufacturing and Supply Chain, Frydenberg Household Products, Mr. Vineet Kumar, General Manager and Head Distribution, Deepak Fertilizers and Petrochemicals Corporation Limited, Mr. Rajesh Menon, Head Supply Chain Operations and IT, Bajaj Consumer Care Limited, Mr. Akhil Srivastava, Director Planning and Logistics with Anheuser-Busch InBev, and Mr. Kailash Sharma, Vice President Supply Chain, CSNQ, GSC International, IMEA, EAJP, and South America with Schneider Electric India Private Limited. So we've got a list of panelists logging in, joining us here, each of them bringing in sound expertise and experience. And it's only befitting that we get them to come together and discuss around this amazing topic. So I'm going to quickly hand over the proceedings to our session moderator, Mr. Rituraj Saha. With that, Rituraj, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kavya, for a nice introduction. All of you can hear me clearly.
Yeah.
Well, talking about the subject, I think the current pandemic situation has exposed fault line in our supply chain. It has disrupted supply chain on a scale never seen before in the recent past. On supply side, we have seen drop in production throughput or disruption in production on account of lack of skilled labor, post-lockdown, adherence to COVID guidelines, delay in delivery of imported components, etc. There's also an increase in price of incoming raw material and packaging material due to steep increase in ocean freight and commodity price increases. While on the demand side, we have seen rapidly changing demand pattern on account of various factors. Consumers have shifted to online channel, health and wellness. Thanks to pandemic, our historical sales data has got a lot of noise because of start-stop sale in the last 12 to 18. We cannot entirely rely on history to predict future because we are transitioning to the new normal situation. So in light of these changes, how do we redesign our demand and supply planning process to adapt ourselves effectively to the new normal situation, which is going to be very different from the one that we used to have in the pre-pandemic era? I am aware that there are many organizations that have embarked on digital transformation program to drive agility in their supply chains. So what are we doing to create an agile and demand-driven supply chain, leveraging connected process and tools? Are we looking at supply network remodeling, a new approach to inventory management, a new sourcing strategy, localization, integrated business planning, process, etc., to build resiliency in our supply chain? On the demand front, we know the consumer demand is changing rapidly. So what steps are we taking to adapt to the new situation? Are we looking at new tech tools and techniques like AI, ML, predictive analytics, social media analytics, integrated supply chain solution, or integrated transportation management system to improve our end-to-end demand and supply planning process, to synchronize and optimize our processes, to enable real-time response on planning and execution, and also to ensure that we have enhanced visibility across the value chain? These are the questions that we will try to answer in the next hour or so. We have supply chain leaders from companies cutting across industries. I didn't realize that collectively we have more than 100 plus years of experience in supply chain management. So let's hear them out. Let me just start with Rajesh Menon. Rajesh, just help us understand how are we coping with changing demand pattern, and how are we pivoting from the traditional approach to forecasting to a new approach to forecasting to ensure that we are able to capture future demand at a fairly accurate level.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. And it's a privilege and pleasure to be part of this esteemed panel. I think coming to your question, Rituraj, I think it's a very interesting question. Things have changed quite a bit in the last, especially in the last couple of years. And I think since you're talking about, forecasting, what the traditional approach has been, what it basically, you look at historical data, use in a set of models, whether it is time series models, we talk about Winterholt, Harima, various kinds of models which you are looking at. And traditionally, you look at data over a period of time, and then use some of these models to look at certain forecasting, right? You also had other models, some of the qualitative techniques also coming in because of some of the for the newer products, because where you don't have history, probably you might have to look at other options as well, right? But what has I think that's probably been the way, and I think there have been certain developments in that space over the years. That's the way probably things have happened over the years. What has changed, right? And I think clearly one thing which has clearly changed is the uncertainty level, and especially now coming, let's talk about the current pandemic situation, the last 1 or 2 years, right? And if you look at it, now, for example, let's take the example of April and May. And I think the data of the April and May for this year as well as the previous year is of no use at this point of time. The way you could use it in a typically, especially for companies which are seasonal and even not necessarily seasonal, everywhere else, right? The data is quite different from what probably history will show and probably what future will, because there are a lot of things which have happened, especially because of the pandemic situation. Now, so what's basically clearly coming out is the uncertainty levels. While it was always there, it's probably also increased, significantly. What has also changed is also your channels of sale is also now undergoing a lot of change. E-commerce has become a fairly important channel. What is expected is that it will probably increase in saliency as well, as it's already increasing, and it will increase in saliency further. Also, what is also happening is, I think the product life, number of products which are getting introduced, and especially from an e-commerce point of view, or even otherwise as well, has also changed. The product life cycle is expected to be much shorter. So all this means that probably some of the historical things which you have history probably might not be there for us to help us in terms of the way demand forecasting probably could be done. The other space which has also changed is, I think the availability of data has also significantly increased, and I think the availability of data and technology from a point of view of maneuvering the data itself has also what do you call enhanced from that point of view, right? Some of the newer tools and some of the newer techniques have also come in, which also helps us in managing that, could help us managing that better. So these are some of the things which has changed. So what it basically means is that you will have to look at for example, if you look at it from a technology point of view, I think AI ML has come in big time, right? And you need to probably use that. I think there is going to be a lot of data. We have to pick up the relevant data and use some of these AI and ML techniques to see how we are able to not just forecast, but also from a point of view being responsive. Now, for example, traditionally what you probably used to do is you will have a 1-month forecast, a 15-day forecast and stuff like that. I don't know whether that will stand good going forward. You might have to really look at data points on a regular basis during the month as well, and accordingly see how you are able to respond to the changing demand pattern. E-commerce is a totally different thing in terms of certain things, like for example how the search probably engine, analytics, or even from a point of view of what is happening from a point of view what the digital influencers are playing a part. All those also needs to come into the picture, right? And what it basically means, you need to be much more agile and nimble as supply chain. And I think whatever whatever inputs you are going to get from the demand side needs to be factored in the way you look at it. And I think that's what probably will have to be while history will play a part, but if you are going to have shorter life cycles, newer channels and stuff like that, it has to be much more also online as well from a point of view of trying to let the demand signals and accordingly respond. I just feel not just forecasting. I think the way you are going to be designed a supply chain as well in terms of how you are going to place your inventories, how responsive is you're going to be manufacturing. All those factors also would come into picture, and I think that's something which I think, especially in my industry, the way, typically in FMCG kind of industry, I see a lot of changes which has happened in the last time. I think things are really evolving very fast in this, space. So yeah, that's broadly what I thought, I could, reply in terms of the question which you had specifically asked from a point of a focus.
Great thought process. What I could gather is that, there's plethora of data available now. How do we leverage it using AI ML? And make it more relevant and use it for predicting our future correctly. And also, we need to also focus on redesigning our supply chain, keeping in mind the new normal situation. Great. So great points, Rajesh. I think talking about demand planning process, I think it's not all demand planning process is not only about forecasting, it's also about demand shaping and demand sensing. And here I would like to bring in Sanjay. Sanjay, I know you have made some changes in demand sensing and demand shaping process to make your forecasting process more robust in the current context. So what steps you have taken to improve your demand sensing and demand shaping activities in your companies?
Yeah. So thanks. First of all, I want to say thank you to Harish and the team to create this beautiful platform to supply chain and manufacturing professional, because it is means good interaction and good means knowledge sharing from across the team. So firstly, thanks. Now, considering as per me, considering the new normal situation that we have, so 4 steps of demand planning situation is very crucial. So one is to get the right information. Second is means react faster. Third one is means bridge the divide. So in the bridge the divide means knock down your internal silos, and also means increase our customer satisfaction. And last but not least, understand the impact. So this is the 4 steps of demand planning, very crucial. And I suggest everyone to means create some checklist and means do the tick mark or do the check mark on these 4 steps. So this is a very crucial. From our side, we have started to work on demand sensing, because demand sensing have given a lot of means input to your demand planning process. When we are doing the demand planning means generally means we are following the S&OP process or demand planning process. Before startup work on a demand sensing, I means suggest to check the maturity of your demand planning process as well as S&OP process. Also means skill set of the demand planner, because this is a very crucial. Otherwise, suppose you don't have the mature demand planning process, then you are doing the demand sensing, then it will be not help. So from our side, we had means work means more than 2 years on the maturity of the demand planning process. We had laid down the demand planning process, S&OP process, and after that, so we thought that our demand planning process is means enough mature. And after that, we take the call to move to demand sensing. So for demand sensing, this is a means one means suppose you Google or you find demand sensing is a point of sale. Yeah, that's a means required. But this is ideal state means in terms of maybe suppose you are doing the demand sensing, you can use the means your demand planning forecast or maybe order shipment or maybe means getting some data from the market. So that way we started the demand sensing, and that's help in terms of means improve our demand planning forecasting method. So this is all internal signal that we are getting from the market or from the means our internal team. And I can proudly say around 20% means we had improved our forecast accuracy due to using this demand sensing. So this is the just means start, and now we want to use means more and more technology, because this is means in terms of using the internal signal. But suppose you are using the point of sale, just an example, I'm sending the material to my distributor and distributor sending the material to my retailer. That will be the point of sale from our side. And in the future, that's the plan, to get that data, automated, and then we will use. So in our case, demand sensing override our short-term forecast, and that's give a lot of means, let's say, high range to react faster. So again, basic should be clear. Again, I repeat that: get the right information, react faster, bridge the divide, and understand the impact, and then start the work on demand sensing. So this is a work we had done in our company from last 1.5 years, and that's give a lot of means good improvement, because the situation. Its first wave started something in 2020, and then second wave means April. So that's created a lot of issue in terms of demand uncertainty, and demand sensing and proper demand planning give means good means support to us. Yeah.
Great, Sanjay. In fact, great to hear that there's 20% increase in forecast accuracy through a robust demand sensing process. And you are actually leveraging point of sales data to ensure real-time response on change in consumer patterns. So that's great to hear. This is something that all of us should replicate to ensure agility in our supply chain. Great. So continuing in this topic, I think let me just turn over to Akhil. Akhil, I know beer industry also got severely impacted during lockdown, but now market is looking up. Wherever I go to a restaurant, pub, I see a lot of consumer thronging there. So how are you coping up with rapidly changing consumer demand? And what steps have you taken to take care of bullwhip impact on account of changing consumer requirement? Are you doing any scenario analysis, and what kind of process change that you have brought about in the demand planning on the demand front to adapt to the new normal situation?
Right. Thanks, Rituraj, for the question. You're able to hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
You able to hear me, Ritu? Raj?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, maybe your connection a bit. But thanks, and very exciting to see everyone on this forum looking forward on how the demand sensing and the overall demand would look forward in coming time. Obviously, hello.
Akhil, we can hear you.
Oh, you are able to hear, yes. Okay, I think Rituraj is blocked, so I was not able to see someone. Okay, so coming back to thanks. Yes, beer market is being better. Beer market is increasing, and so is demand for everything else. I fundamentally feel demand is all about 4 key factors, and I was reading this Wikipedia definition of demand as such, right? Demand is quantity of a good that consumers are A, willing, B, able to purchase at various price points and at a given point of time. Now, that is a fundamental thing which I would say is critical on 4 things. 1, willing and able, then at a particular price point and a particular quantity, right, over a period of time. Given that last 2 years, I understand, has been of fundamental importance for me in particular as the head of supply chain for the beer business, because while there was consumer willing to spend, they were not able to because the shops were closed, right? And also what we also fundamentally see is that particularly the consumerism is dependent on a lot more of product being there with them on approach and availability. So hence instant gratification. Beer, no one consumes beer which is warm, right? You need to have a product which is really cold and gives you experience. And given those, there has been a lot of work which we required for overall demand sensing and demand planning. Obviously, that means beer also has a shelf life of 6 months, and hence time factor comes into a picture. And therefore, it becomes important for us to understand the real demand, the pent-up demand, and the occasion-based demand because the in-home occasions have improved a lot more compared to people going to bars and restaurants. So there has been a considerable shift between the demand which was being done on a on-premise consumption, which is bars and restaurants, versus the demand which is being undertaken at a home. And hence, occasions do matter a lot in overall consumption, which means we need to deploy a lot of occasions, pricing, SKU rationalization, SKU delivery, and above all, looking at overall quantity at disposal so that we are able to meet the demand, but at the same time, not consider obsolescence of the inventory. And hence, we have been busy undertaking a couple of models on bullwhip effect to build a robust system for the business, so much so that my two KPIs, one being out of stock, is at the lowest for this year, and my supply chain loss is again the lowest for the year. So we have been able to smoothen the curve from any demand distortion, which would have otherwise taken us back from the profitability agenda of the business.
I think great points. I think Akhil, you have made great points in terms of rationalization of SKUs and delivering SKUs at the right price point. In fact, I have heard of many companies which have taken call to rationalize SKUs that they want to offer to consumer given challenges in our backend. So great point. So let's talk about supply planning process. I think we are grappling with volatility in demand, but there are steps that all of us have taken to cater to those changes in market requirement. Let me turn over to Sitaram. Sitaram, how are you bridging gaps between demand and supply through predictive analytics? And how are you enhancing visibility across all stakeholders to enable real-time response on planning and execution?
Thank you, Rituraj. Thank you, fellow panelists also. So in terms of the technology adoption to bridge the demand, bridge the gap between demand and supply. So there's a lot of tools which is coming into foray, especially in the last couple of years, right, where enterprises are leveraging on this to increase and sustain their businesses. As Mr. Rajesh had mentioned, data is the key now. So availability of data has become a lot in the last couple of years, especially after pandemic. So everyone is trying to lay hands on the data, so that which helps their organization to be more proactive and agile and faster to bring products and reach the customer faster, right? So in that way, I think the current world, data being the key, supply chain is the only function after finance which relies and operates with data, right? So with so much of data in hand, how is supply chain leveraging that or making the data inference through statistical modeling, which can throw a lot of meaningful insights for every enterprise and an organization, right? In the current scenario where there is a lot of volatility, especially in supply as well as in demand, right? So there is a lot of bullwhip effect based on the pandemic. So for these, how it helps the businesses, how they can manage the inventory through rationalization, as Akhil had mentioned, that how do we rationalize the SKUs, right, based on the statistical models, based on the past historical demand, as well as the consumer shift, what's currently happening, right? With a combination of technology, with a lot of predictive analytics going into this, we can help build optimization in inventory and in the forecasting process as such, and also develop a lot of marketing strategies because of the rapidly changing consumer shift, especially in the last 1.5 years. There's a lot of consumer shift in terms of technology and trend. What is the faster adoption that they are going into, how fast they are reacting based on the current environment which they are working in. For that, how is every organization adapting to that? this will all be helped with this kind of predictive analytics, right? Especially like in industries like in cold chain, FMCG. So this will help them adapt faster and make the products reach faster to the consumers, right? So especially in environments where it is highly competitive, right, in healthcare or in FMCG sectors, right? If we don't have predictive analytics, if you don't have a reading on the consumer demand, consumer how it is shifting, right? As Rajesh had said that the life cycle, the product life cycle is reducing faster now. So in many of the technology, especially in consumer electronics, which used to be somewhere about 18 months earlier, now it has been reduced to almost like 6 months. So how is every organization adapting to this? If we don't bridge this gap between demand and supply, otherwise we'll be left behind in that, right? So there is a Gartner report also which says that if whichever organization is leveraging these technologies can achieve a higher rate of investment, right? And also they can reduce the inventory by at least like 20% with this kind of predictive analytics. This will also help supply chain leaders to anticipate and prepare for the future, because in the current situation, as Rajesh mentioned, historical data only will not help us sustain, right? How do we see how the future is evolving and how are we reacting and adapting to it will depend on how do we read the mind of consumers, right? So that's how it is. In terms of enhancing the visibility, right, for all the stakeholders, especially in the pandemic world, right? So there's a lot of volatility in the supply chain. So for bringing the correct visibility, right? What is the actual status in upstream as well as in downstream, like for a downstream, for all your sales, for a sales team as well as for your customers, bringing them on board and up to speed on what is the current status of any planning, whatever you have done, and also keeping the upstream informed about your management or your vendors and your global planning teams as such. It will help us a lot if we have a control tower system in place, right, which pushes the demand and the data back into the complete team as such, so that everyone has the visibility end to end from the time it is manufactured until the time it reaches the consumers, what it can be done, what is the timelines that it can be done according to that, right? So control tower as a concept is on the rise with a lot of advanced digital adoption in this. There are a lot of tools which are available now. So most of the enterprises and organizations are adapting to this. In the last 1.5 years, even as a company, we also adapted to this control tower system and into a lot of predictive analytics, which has helped us sustain and move our pace faster, at least by 1.5 years, to become more agile in terms of an organization as such. Right. So with the current longer lead times, most of the consumer electronics or FMCG sectors, there's a lot of impact where we have dependencies on globalization from certain countries as such, right? So for that, there's a lot of risk involved. So for those risk management and for your performance management, these visibility and control tower processes helps us a lot, right? And going forward, I think the end-to-end supply chain visibility will be a key critical differentiator for most of the organizations, because who brings the products faster and makes it reach to the consumer, right, at the right time, at the right cost, that is what will matter, right? And this has been a top of mind concern for many of the enterprises now, especially during the pandemic. Though this task is a little bit daunting, but investing on this is definitely rich in ROI process as such, and it will clearly define how best an organization can evolve with adoption of these newer technologies.
Great points, Sitaram. I think yes, control tower as a concept is catching up. There are a lot of companies that have implemented control tower to ensure and enhance visibility of information across the value chain. And in fact, it has really helped a lot of us in ensuring faster response to market requirement. Thank you. So let me just turn over to Vineet Kumar. We have spoken about challenges that we are facing in our backend currently across industries. A lot of companies are facing headwinds in terms of increase in commodity price. So what are the steps that you have taken to mitigate risk, I would say profitably risk arising out of commodity price increase? And secondly, I think being in fertilizer industry, how are you doing supply-led demand planning to address challenges that you are facing?
Yeah, thanks, Rituraj. I'm really privileged to have here discussing with all of you. And even though I heard with Rajesh, who has started from the uncertainty of the data, and thereafter I heard Sanjay, who is saying that by demand sensing, he would be able to increase somewhere around 20% of this thing, demand accuracy. And thereafter, once Akhil came, he highlighted two things. One is able and billing. So I think everyone is on a same this thing. We have ample data, but again, the phase in which we are, data needs to be drilled and look to be in a different perspective. Because now at this point of time, only and only talk about yes, we are going for digitalization and this thing. No, I think more than 80% companies have already been digitalized the entire supply chain, and whosoever is not part and parcel of this thing digitalization. So I think they must be the most sufferer during this pandemic. So now with digitalization, everyone has this key transparency of data for the smoother function as well as the seamless flow of information, not only the internal as well as external customer. And once you have that kind of a visibility, connectivity in the entire chain, it gives you ample empowerment, ample room to play with the limitations. And even though, especially if I'll say, respective to the commodity businesses, not only the fertilizer one. So once pandemic has started, so, and it was totally impromptu, nobody was informed, or there was no plan B. Everybody was just seeing what is happening. And even though the day it has came, the stocks which was in and around plant was not available for the production itself. We were having raw material, but my production was uninterrupted because my raw material was available at plant A, at plant B, at manufacturing side, there was no connectivity. So, and this is on a very, once we are talking on a commodity business, so this is somewhere numbers, millions and 1 and 2 millions kind of a this thing. If you are losing a day production, it means you are not losing production, you are losing something which is going to your bottom and top line in a very big way. So in a first phase, considering yes, you have a challenge, accepting this, yes, you have a challenge, then how you are going to react with this challenge? So one thing, whatsoever customer is asking as billing enable. So billing, definitely he may be billing, yes, I need this, but is he able to get it? So then this phenomena came into the place where, let's leave it, what he is able, now work on what he is willing, now work on what he is able at this point of time. So whatsoever we are available readily, so that we can use our resources in a best way. And even though the time when most of the companies were struggling to utilize their manufacturing capacities, we were somewhere on a very good note, utilizing our resources in a best way, because we have changed the philosophy rather than demand to supply. We have changed the philosophy, supply to demand. Let's provide whatsoever is available at this point of time. So it was the forced decision at that point of time in anticipation of the challenges whatsoever was in front of everyone. once we went into the next phase, when this struggle for inbound logistics in and around plant was settled down, the next challenge was for the international supply chain, international raw material prices, with the totally pandemic-driven situation, where even though in today's scenario also, some of the products are ever highest level. So knowingly, unknowingly, it was bound to this thing, how we are going to fulfill whatsoever customer is needing. He may be needing something buy, but at least you should give him buy -1. If you will target for buy, it may be possible that customer may not be able to get to use that particular product, because ultimately now initially uski availability will be, because you cannot pass each and everything on a customer's this thing, then there is no need of having such kind of a data and such kind of a connectivity in the entire. So now data comes at this point of juncture where we have started looking forward what kind of a availability of raw materials can be secure for a long and a small and medium term, so that at least we can fix two things. One is my availability of raw materials. Second thing is continuation of my production cost. So continuation of my productions, which is going to impact my production cost. So out of three, availability of raw material, converting to the finished products, and then delivering to the customer. So we have worked on the first two challenges, availability of raw material and then conversion it into the finished products. So how it works, at least we could be able to give the best what could be at that point of time. It may not be the what was required, but yes, we could be able to give the best what could be at that point of time by means of cost effectiveness, by means of continuity. Because why I'm talking on the these two fronts, continuity and the cost effectiveness, because you are giving a product which is out of pocket from a customer's perspective. So this is going to be a back effect on the entire supply chain. So attempting on first two things, yes, there should be a continuity in production as well as in continuity in availability of products. So this was the this thing, a unique concept at that point of time. We were not discussing yes with the this thing room discussions what kind of a demand or what kind of a requirement at this point of time, considering especially the commodities business where volume matters a lot. It was a discussion what we can deliver at this point of time. At least there should not be vacuum in the availability of products. So it was a discussion, and even though these discussions help us in a very different way, because discussions was more productive, because at that point of time data visibility was with everyone. Yes, within next 1 month or 2 months, or sometimes we have this visibility within next 3 months, this kind of a scenario is going to happen, because we have secured my raw material on the basis of this thing in future, in something where we can say we do some hedging and all those things, so that we can secure yes, availability will be in the terms whatsoever I can afford at this point of time. So at least 2-3 months visibility we have in line with place. So this has changed the thought process and the discussions. We were not discussing what is the requirement at this point of time. We were discussing, yes, this is what the available at this point of time, and let's plan it better, how we can deliver it, and what are the areas, and what are the, and even though then this data, yes, this kind of a, and whatsoever products we are available, where are the most potential we can focus on. And over and above the other important thing, we have started taking each and every product as a new product during this pandemic time. We are not looking, yes, this will the entire this thing data point whatsoever we are getting from a previous trend, it is going to happen the same way. So every product is a new product, and start delivering it, behaving it, handling it in a new product scenario, not in a stream and settled product scenario. So these are the things which is just help in continuation. And even though I'm seeing within next this thing short term to medium term, say 6 to 12 months of 12 quarter of coming forward, the scenario is going to be happen in the same way. As we can see, because if we talk about, because I was in renewable industry for a long time, and I used to track that also. So slowly, I don't know how much you people are. Slowly, you will see within next coming couple of months, you will see sunflower oil supplies will be a bit better in comparison of other preferred oils. And again, this will be more supply and demand perspective, because we are seeing in a coming days the crop of sunflower is very good, so it is going to be a price softener in the international market. And once their prices will be relatively softer, so traders and manufacturers will start tweaking their demand accordingly, so that they can give a better perspective to the customer on his own table. So I think changing into the table may not be beneficial all the time, but yes, faster decision making by which and faster decision making is happening how? Because of the availability of data. And the second thing, only this thing which it could be contribute into the real this thing synergy, because the flow of information was quite faster after digitalization. Because once we are discussing today, so tomorrow all the channel partners, even though my internal as well as external, and sometimes we have covered the ultimate customer also, what is happening, what is going to happen within next couple of times.
Right. So I think very interesting point, Vineet. What I'm hearing from you is making best use of whatever resources that you have at your disposal. High level of collaboration with front-end team to ensure supply of or sale of whatever is available in your backend, and making use of information on a real-time basis, right? Great. So thank you, Vineet. So let me just move to KP Sharma from Schneider Electric. Mr. Sharma, I think talking about new trends, seeing any new trends emerging in your industry, and how are you catering to it through smart factories and smart digital supply chain?
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. And I guess it was really exciting to hear other esteemed panelists here. As you know, all of us know, most of the business models or most of the companies, I guess we are dependent on our customers. And I guess if you see in last 5 to 6 years, there is a huge paradigm shift happening in the supply chain, end to end. You call it from procurement to supply chain to planning to manufacturing to logistics and back to customer delivery of those products. And specifically, if you see after this COVID and all of us are facing the kind of challenge where the complete new thoughts, the new processes, now new customer demands are coming into picture. And I guess let me first share with the team here, how inside Schneider Electric and maybe some of our competition and our kind of industry is moving towards more customer-centric supply chain, rather than just focusing on our own internal metrics. I was connecting in some of the forum where most of the times what we do is we have our internal supply chain, inventory, digitization, the supply chain tools. We invest millions of dollars on all those kind of tools. But I guess it's a time to ask ourselves how much it's helping my customer. A lot of times when we go to the customer, most of the times customer doesn't know what kind of tools we are using, what kind of processes we have. And he should not knowing also, right? He is more interested how I can get efficient products in time without any quality issue at appropriate prices and so on. So I guess the new trend which is coming is, for example, in our kind of industry, earlier our focus attention was, okay, produce the products and give to customer. But I guess no new thinking is coming, which is more like, customer centric, integrated digital supply chain. And when we talk about customer centric supply chain, for example, there was a question to the org, like, who are your customer? And sometimes from the planning side, procurement side, quality side, production side, we just produce and sell, send to DCs or to the customer. Then it's up to our sales team how to sell. But I guess the customer segmentation, for example, in Schneider Electric, some of you are our customers also. We have segmented our customers into 17 categories. For example, distributor, panel builder, system integrator, end user. All these customer segments have a different supply chain models inside our organization. Let me give an example. For example, let's say distribution model, right? We are more B2B. And before that, I was with Dell Computers for many years in the supply chain. I was there in US for many years. And then I was in India. Even I have seen, all of you know how Dell's supply chain was, right? The point here is, if I have to feed a distributor, maybe he's telling, okay, you give me the material, he will stock and he will sell. But if you go to a system integrator, he's more a technical guy. He need material today so that he can use tomorrow. And after 2 days, 3 days, he can dispatch his product to the customer to minimize inventory pressure, to minimize many other things, right, in the supply chain, lead time, etc. So what I'm trying to say, one of the trend which is emerging is how to have a customer segmented supply chain. And then we need to understand, I don't know how many industrial and industry process and planning have a CLO, which is customer logistics software. A lot of times we talk about what is the lead time, but have we spoken what is the customer logistics software? So for example, if we produce one breaker, there are different CLOs available for different customer segmentation. One customer need in 1 week, other customer need in 1 month, third customer need in 2 months. So when we do this kind of customer segmented transformations, what happens? It also reduces pressure on inventory. It also reduces, it customized, it tailored as per customer needs. So we call it tailored supply chain a few years ago. Now, second important point which is coming into picture is digital and smart factories. Today, if you see, you might be seeing in LinkedIn and other kind of stuff, like globally, we have about 50 to 55 factories which are completely smart and digital. And in India itself, we have 2 to 3 factories who are really smart. For example, if you go to Hyderabad, you can see from the order to the material to the quality controls on the line. We are using all kind of IoT, machine learning, digital capabilities, robotics. A lot of times we are discussing, hey, this is still people are discussing, but what about reality on the floor? So I also urge any one of our participants or panelists, if you want to come to see the factory in Hyderabad, most welcome. I will be there to host you. But what I'm trying to say, if you go to that factory, really you will see what is a smart factory. Means from planning tools to manufacturing digitization to the logistics. For example, in logistics, we have 17 customer process capabilities, which are all digital. So if customer is saying, hey, I do not want this material in Jaipur, I want this material to be shipped to the Aurangabad. So from system itself, we can transfer. Some customer is telling, hey, I have given a order of 50, but give me staggering order, 5, 7, 10, and he will tell us these are the different dates where I want materials and so on. So what I'm trying to say, second important piece is the digital integrated version with the supply chain tool, with the logistics tool. I guess very important thing is a lot of times we buy some digital tool, we put some digitization in place in a silos or some factor or some elements. But I guess we need to see end-to-end, integration of this digitization. Now, one example is when we are saying customer-focused supply chain. Today, we have invested on a tool called Mediala. Every delivery which goes to the customer, automatically survey goes to him. He fills the survey and everything. And for me, there is no need to go anyone. I go to my mobile, I go to my apps. I see how many customers are replying back to me, how many customers are detracted. From morning today, I called 2 customers who were not happy because I have their mobile number. I know their location. I know their name. And then I can also see how system integrator is doing, how panel builder is doing, how end user is doing. I can also see how competition is doing. I can see how my competition, 7 companies, their NSS, net satisfaction score is moving on and how they are feeling. So what I'm trying to say, this kind of digitization is very important. And third, I guess when we are talking about digitization, it's like giving F-16 in hand of Pakistan also. So when we are doing so many digitization, we have to make it sure how we train our people, how to bring mindset, because it's a clear mindset change. We are very good in investing. We go to management, hey, I need 400k euro or dollars for this kind of digitization. So if we get approval, fine. If we don't, management is like that. They don't want to do anything. They're just pushing us. If we get the approval, we do it. But frankly speaking, the execution at the nth level is very, very important. And we have seen many flaws when supply chain planning, logistics, sales, quality, production people, all of them should be the same page. A lot of times supply chain planning people only own the tools and other part of the organization is not aware of what is going on. So I guess third is digital citizens of the people. So I know already it's 224, but 3 points. One is the customer segmentation. Second, the digital and smart factories integration. Third, bring the competency mindset change in the people, because even COVID is throwing a different kind of, and where everything is going over the roof, all the prices, you know, and all. But I can tell you the way Schneider is doing, we were able to handle this situation. Our stock price, you might have seen, was 86, today 140. It means we have done some good job in the last 2 years. So I'm not marketing Schneider Electric here, but I urge each one of you, whenever you need to know something of this kind of capabilities, I invite you in my Hyderabad plant, or I can set up a call with our team, with any one of you, whoever want to learn. End of the day, Make in India is more important for all of us to make it happen. Thank you so much, Rituraj. I know time is less. That's what I'm holding back.
Thank you. I think very, very interesting insight, and couldn't agree with you more that we have to be more customer centric as we go forward. All our processes have to be geared up to meet our customer requirement at the end of the day. And digital factory and digital supply chain is a way forward. Great. So thank you very much, Mr. KP Sharma. So we have spoken about demand planning. We have spoken about steps that we are taking to make our supply chain more agile. I think procurement is also an essential part of overall supply chain. So let me bring in Amandeep to talk about steps that he has taken in the area of procurement. Amandeep, how are you creating a world-class supplier experience through digital collaboration?
Sure.
What new initiatives you have taken in the area of procurement to drive agility in our supply chain?
Sure. So I think it was great to listen to everybody. And Mr. Sharma, I'll take up on your offer to visit your smart factory, because that's an area I'm passionate about. I'm definitely going to take it up. Like you said, Rituraj, very aptly, procurement is an essential part of supply chain, but it's also like the underappreciated part of the supply chain. If you see the team, the procurement team and the purchase teams act as an invisible glue that hold the entire supply chain together, but somewhere sort of they get diffused, and the only focus areas there are what kind of cost savings can you bring onto the board. What has happened is like similar to what our supply chains have experienced, the pandemic and the current global trade situation has definitely created some directional changes on the procurement side as well. There are industries which we have the vantage point of working with large enterprises as suppliers, as well as working with about 16,000 SMEs who supply to us. So in a way, we get an opportunity to see both sides of the story and sort of really understand what pain is going on and what kind of changes are going on. And what we're realizing is that there are industries that have faced price erosion, and then there are industries where significant cost inflation has come in, and obviously it's led to the procurement team as part of the supply chain to rework and to look at the resilience, right, from a supply perspective. But sadly, what we noticed is that many procurement teams had not devoted significant time and resources to pursue more strategic initiatives. It was all about short-term activities such as category waves, that what can generate the next 6 to 8 month kind of impact. I think that's where the gap sort of got exposed, during the last couple of years. But I know there's a McKinsey study which clearly correlates the fact that those companies that invested in more longer term initiatives and strategic initiatives could clearly see there was a 99% correlation with overall organization performance as well as overall performance of the procurement team. The way I look at procurement today, 3 clear layers that exist today. One is a strategic layer that defines categories, does the big ticket negotiations manages large business partnerships. Then there is another layer which looks at that executes that strategy, and then there is a layer that of people who look at research, data gathering, etc. 3 to 5 years from here onwards, I can clearly see that the top level in terms of people will still be the same, but the way of working would be very, very different. Largely steered by AI, working on larger value generation, topics rather than purely savings. The middle layer is what will really, really shrink, which is already happening to some extent, where people have moved into more automation, like each one of you have pointed out, more digitization, more automation. Can we take off operational tasks off the table? Can I look at strategic suppliers only rather than talk to 800 to 1,000 suppliers? And if I look at any manufacturing organization, 80% of the supplier base is today sitting for 10 to 15% of the spend. That's how inefficient it is. So in the next 5 years, I clearly see that moving away. And the third is that the bottom layer will expand substantially. So first trend is definitely, like people said, digitization. But what does it mean in terms of digitization? That layer will expand in terms of people working on master data. You have AI programmers. New capability building is right now going on there, and which is going to surface in the next couple of years. The second trend that I have noticed, and it's a great trend in this week itself in couple of conversations, is that from purely cost savings, which is immediate, companies earlier did not ask for innovation or sustainability. And that, I realize, is becoming a very, very important thread. A CPO conversation that I had yesterday was fundamentally saying that, how are you looking at sustainability of suppliers and their suppliers? That to me was a clear defining moment when you have Indian homegrown companies, and these are not MNCs who are talking of sustainability, is where I believe is a very, very strong trend. And again, data will make a lot of it possible. Even on the innovation side, for example, if I ask any one of you, if you have 1,000 suppliers, which one of those suppliers has the largest potential for innovation? It's kind of difficult, because do we know what kind of parameters to look at from a supplier or procurement perspective to say that these are going to be the most innovative ones for me? That is going to happen as a trend. I can clearly see that. The third trend I see is autonomous sourcing, where non-mission critical items, C-class items, are all put into catalog-led buying. I know we've been speaking about this for multiple years, but I can clearly see that inflection point coming in now, where people are saying, that spend, it's like the outsourcing wave. 20 years back, I would have gone to a company and asked for tech outsourcing, and he would have looked at me and said, what are you talking about? This is data, my servers, my data, my information. How can I even give it to you? I will only give you this information and that information. Today, when you look at it, you have companies who come and take over their entire landscape, and you just say, that's not core to my business. The same thing is going to happen on the indirect side. I can clearly see that company saying, indirect, long tail, can you just take it, make it autonomous? I want to just focus on my strategic purchasing. The fourth trend is obviously on the people side. How do you make this function more attractive to young talent? The day when you focus on suppliers with a stick for savings is clearly over. How do you bring in more, I would say, innovation into this function so that talent can sort of get attracted? I think people have started thinking about all of this. So I'm cognizant of time, so I just thought I'll quickly articulate certain trends that I see.
No, Amandeep, procurement is is the integral part of supply chain. In fact, within the supply chain function, in fact, this function has got impacted the most. And even I was reading in a newspaper, the auto industry has got impacted because of severe shortage of semiconductor. Even
yes,
my industry also got impacted because of shortage of semiconductors.
Yes.
We are currently facing situation in China where there is a localized lockdown and there is a port congestion, and therefore the focus has to be on indigenization, localization of supply.
Absolutely.
Which is in tune with government's agenda of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Absolutely.
So also focusing a lot on localization of vendors. So A, we are able to reduce time to market. B, make our supply chain more agile and demand driven.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Great. So great discussion. I know we are running short of time. I think great inputs from all of you. If I were to summarize some of the points put forth by the esteemed panelists, I think we are talking about moving toward a customer-centric supply chain. There is a common theme that you have to move away from efficiency and we have to become more agile and demand-driven as we go forward. yes, a traditional approach to forecasting process won't work any longer. So we'll have to pivot to a new ways of forecasting, focusing on demand sensing, demand shaping, leveraging data that is available to us through various sources, including social media, and also doing some kind of qualitative and predictive analytic. And then Akhil also spoke about rationalization of SKUs and taking a holistic view of what to sell at what price point. And then on the supply side, we are talking about visibility of supply chain across all the nodes of the supply chain to enable real-time response on planning and execution, ensuring that all stakeholders are updated on information on a near real-time basis. I think some of you have touched upon strengthening the need for IBP process, although we didn't explicitly talk about it. But I sincerely believe that there's no better time than now to strengthen the IBP process so that we are able to drive strong cross-functional alignment on operational plan that is linked to business objectives. And then on the procurement side, we're talking about, I think it's a great point on circular economy and sustainable procurement process. We need to focus on localization, on sustainability, and making our upstream of supply chain more agile and demand driven as we go forward. And of course, last but not the least, digital is way forward, irrespective of which part of the supply chain you're talking about. We have to bring all our stakeholders onto one platform through various digital initiatives to ensure real-time response on changes in market requirement. So thanks a lot very much for your inputs. It's been great. I have actually personally, it was a very enlightening session for me. I learned a lot. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kavya.
Thank you very much, Rituraj. A very, very enthusiastic discussion over there. And at the same time, as you had mentioned, I think along with you, we all managed to learn a lot as well. So I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us this afternoon and for sharing some amazing set of insights with all of us and for sharing your learnings and your understandings, most importantly, these amazing set of observations and trends. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you once again, Rituraj, for beautifully moderating the session.
Thank you, and have a nice day ahead.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, great to connect. Bye.